to pay attention to the tag team division. If there ever was a time to pay attention to the tag team division within the WWE in its entirety, it is now, because you have a top tag team, you have a legend teaming with a new talented initiative star like Daniel Bryan, who has held various singles championships, with his first tag team title coming at the hands of Kane and that team that he's formed with him, in this bond that is undescribable in my opinion. It's kind of like a bond that Booker T and Goldust had, a very unorthodox bond, but it allowed them to go on to capture tag team championship gold. And it's kind of like the bond that I guess Booker T had with all of his tag team partners. You know, himself and RVD weren't the most likely team, but they went on to win the tag team championships. And I think that some of the most uncharacteristic and undescribable teams have achieved the most success. I mean, look at the bond that Sean Waltman and Glenn Jacobs, Kane and X-Pac, formed. It was an undescribable bond that could have been described in so many ways, and they went on to achieve more success than any of the top teams in the WWE during their run and during the Attitude Era. I think that Kane and Daniel Bryan fall within that same category, where their bond is simply undescribable, with so many words being used to be able to describe Kane and Daniel Bryan. But I think over the next 5 months, with the next 5 months being as crucial as they are, I think that Kane and Daniel Bryan are probably going to go on to achieve more success than any of the top teams in the WWE. This isn't a reign that's going to last the equivalent of 25 to 30 days. This is a reign that's going to last probably 200 days, honestly, because Kane and Daniel Bryan have needed something like this. I've been asking for this. I've been literally begging for something for Kane and Daniel Bryan to turn their careers around, and I think this is it. And it ties in well with Halloween fastly approaching on the 31st of October. It's going to be really interesting to see what they're going to be doing on the Monday Night Raw leading into Halloween. Of course, Halloween falls on a Wednesday. Hopefully we'll see them defend the tag team titles on the Raw before Halloween, and we'll continue to see them achieve success as a tag team. I mean, you look at the history of Kane and various tag team partners over the years, going back as far as his brother The Undertaker and the storylines and their success as a team, the Brothers of Destruction. You look at the success of Kane and the Big Show, which were one of the most dominant teams of the Attitude Era, and years after that they had so much success during the Attitude Era, WWE put the titles back on them several years after the Attitude Era had been put in the vault of WWE. They relived their tag team title run, which was short-lived the second time around, but it was fun seeing them regain the tag team titles and their status as one of the most dominant teams in the WWE. And now we're seeing Kane and Daniel Bryan for the first time ever as a team. I think this is fun. The combination is unique, and as I alluded to here earlier on in the show, I think that they have this Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash presence about them. In mid-1995, Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash ascended to the top of the WWE, holding every title that was eligible to be competed for in the WWE, including the major title, the Intercontinental title, and the tag team titles that were held by Yokozuna and Owen Hart for many months. They won those titles back at WrestleMania 11 from the Smoking Guns and held them for a number of months as WWE's top team before losing the titles to Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash. And Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash went on to make history as one of the most dominant teams in the WWE, and the only team that could defeat a tag team combination as unique and authentic as Yokozuna and Owen Hart. If you remember back, Owen Hart introduced Yokozuna as his mystery tag team partner, as a replacement partner for WrestleMania 11 for a partner he was originally supposed to a team with to compete for the tag team titles. So I think that, tag team wrestling was good back then, and slowly but surely I think that we're, reaching a point of reestablishment with tag team wrestling where we know we're never going to get to a point of the Smoking Guns versus Owen Hart and Yokozuna ever again. But tag team wrestling is slowly but surely getting better. I especially love the idea of how WWE represent the tag team titles by putting the titles on teams that you would never think will come into fruition. Like Kane and Daniel Bryan. Could you have honestly seen a team like this 5 or 6 years ago being formed? When the tag team titles were first unified, you saw teams like the Big Show and Chris Jericho holding the titles to promote the fact that WWE had one undisputed team as the tag team champions, and gradually we would see more mid-card teams being given the tag team titles to represent them, like the Clones and various others. And now it seems as if WWE are continuing with that same trend, forming teams for the sake of having a tag team division. But as they're forming teams for the sake of having a tag team division, they are reestablishing what was at one point in tag team wrestling. We're never going to get back to 1980 style tag team wrestling, but it's better than what it was, honest to God. I mean, you have to admit, you have to give WWE some credit and some form of establishment and legitimacy for what they're doing with tag team wrestling, because it looks a whole lot more fun and a whole lot more enjoyable seeing Kane and Daniel Bryan as your tag team champions. And honestly, I'd go for Kane and Daniel Bryan as your tag team champions over a team like R-Truth and Kofi Kingston, because they really weren't the most entertaining team that you could have had as your tag team champions. R-Truth and Kofi Kingston as tag team champions was just an excuse to have a team with a name as your tag team champions, because you didn't have anybody else in a position to promote the tag team division. And with R-Truth having nothing done with his career, and Kofi Kingston especially, you wanted to make these two noticed as two new talented stars making a name for themselves. So the best thing you had was to give them a tag team title run to make them stand out and benefit one another, which they did. But I think fans lost interest in the idea of R-Truth and Kofi Kingston as tag team champions, and R-Truth and Kofi Kingston themselves lost interest in being tag team champions. It seemed like it didn't become as much fun as it was early in their run, so WWE would take the titles off them. Now we're at a point where Kane and Daniel Bryan are the tag team champions and are enjoying their run in the first few weeks. But how long is that going to last before they themselves lose interest? The answer to that, I think, is they're going to continue to love being tag team champions. It seems like Kane especially enjoys working with tag team partners and being a tag team wrestler more than a singles competitor. He's had success both as a singles wrestler and tag team wrestler. Daniel Bryan's never been to the top with a tag team partner as a tag team champion, so this is novelty for him to its finest. But Kane has had success both as a singles and tag team wrestler. This is nothing new for him, but it seems as if he enjoys working with various tag team partners and has had more success as a tag team wrestler, surprisingly, as a singles wrestler. And you can't argue or dispute the fact or success of Kane and Daniel Bryan. Kane and Daniel Bryan's success is something that you cannot argue, you cannot dispute. You just kind of got to go along with it, and I think this is something that's going to continue for Kane and Daniel Bryan over the next 5 to 6 months. If not 6 months, at least 4 to 5 months tops, and then it'll be time for the primetime players to solidify themselves as tag team champions. And if not them, I don't know. It's just tag team wrestling is slowly but surely reestablishing itself, and I think that sooner or later tag team wrestling is going to have the same amount of attention it had potentially back in the mid-90s or early 80s, when teams like Demolition and Strikeforce were establishing themselves as legends and some of the best teams in the industry. We're never going to get back to that point, but Kane and Daniel Bryan are definitely offering us a bit of a reprieve from what tag team wrestling has been over the last half of a decade. Congratulations to Kane and Daniel Bryan for their solidification as tag team champions. I look forward to the next 5 months because I think they're going to be crucial for Kane and Daniel Bryan, and especially I love the idea of how Halloween is fastly approaching, and we have a team like Kane and Daniel Bryan under the name Hell No, representing the tag team division the way that they are. It's definitely a scream and a whole lot of fun for everybody, especially with Halloween coming up. Over the last couple of days, I've taken in that much comic books in the way of Spider-Man and Batman that I don't know what to do with myself. I'll tell you more on that next week as we take a look back at Batman and Spider-Man comic book history. Something I didn't expect to actually talk about. But next week we'll take a look back at the history between Batman and Spider-Man comics. More on that next week. And we invite you to tell us what you thought of this week's edition of the program on our Facebook page, on our Twitter and our YouTube, on Facebook.com/HW Entertainment, Twitter.com/JonathanClarke1, and YouTube.com/JonathanClarke22. In addition to that, our website is now offering widgets for all of our social media networks, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, to give you somewhat of a preview of what's happening on our social media pages in the way of conversational topics to influence you to sign up for one of our social media sites. In addition to that, we're streaming the show on all major social networks. All you got to do is visit Facebook.com/HW Entertainment, click on Info, scroll down to the About Me section, and choose Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube as one of the social media sites you want to listen to our show on. We're also linking you up to our radio forum, all you have to do is click on Listen Live, which is a button found in our extended info on our Facebook page and our RSS news feed. By clicking on the RSS logo you'll find on our extended info page. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, thanking you so much for listening to this week's edition of the show, and I will see you next week when we take a look back at the history of Spider-Man and Batman comics. More on that next week. I've got some music lined up for you on the way next. Daughtry and one of his latest, Start of Something Good.
When something takes place in the world of professional wrestling, you know where to go. WrestleZone.com. WrestleZone.com. Covering all the latest breaking news daily. Interactive forums where you can chat with thousands of other wrestling fans. Exclusive editorials and audio features by some of today's top wrestling superstars. Exclusive video content, weekly polls, live play-by-play coverage of every WWE and TNA pay-per-view. And now, featuring WrestleZone Radio, live with news, in-depth discussions, debates, and interviews with wrestling's top stars, past and present. When you think wrestling, think WrestleZone. WrestleZone.com.
He considers himself God's gift to wrestling, and millions of his faithful agree. With nearly 4 hours of footage and exclusive commentary and matches, this DVD chronicles Daniel's rise from Chicago's Windy City Wrestling to the Asylum in Nashville, and finally to the top of TNA. TNA Home Video presents Heaven Sent, Hell Bound, the best of Christopher Daniels. Available at most retailers and TNAWrestling.com.
Hey, you right there, the one listening to this show. While you're tuning into this broadcast or when you read the news on WrestleZone.com, are you forming opinions of it all? Or do you just agree with everything you see and hear? If you actually have some sort of afterthought, which, by the way, is normal, we want to know what it is. There are thousands of wrestling fans just like you that simply can't hold their thoughts